Welcome to Rough Drafts, How God Writes His Love in Our Stories, a podcast that explores the faith journeys of our friends and neighbors in Burns, Tennessee. Everyone has a story to tell, and in this podcast, we'll hear powerful and inspiring stories of how God works in the ordinary lives of people like you and me. Our stories are unfinished and perfectly imperfect. They are just rough drafts, a glimpse of what is to come because God is still at work, writing plot twists, introducing new characters, and bringing good even from the most challenging circumstances. Join us as we see what God is up to in our stories. Here's your host, Matthew Hyatt.
We're back, friends. Today we get an English teacher extraordinaire. But there's so much more to this guy than conjugating verbs. Do they even conjugate verbs in English class? I don't know what they do in English. It's been a long time since that's where I learned to talk more gooder.
Paid a lot of attention, I can tell.
Do they diagram sentences anymore?
Well, what they're really good at is drawing pictures in English class. That's what I found.
I don't remember that being part of my English class. This is English, not hieroglyphics.
Right.
Okay, he's a soccer coach, husband, dad, a lot of other things, but I can't say all those on the radio show. It is Mr. Taylor Rhodes. Taylor.
Hey.
How goes it?
It's good, man. It's a good morning. You know, lots of sunshine that we're not getting right now, but there's sunshine in here because we got our good morning sunshine going on.
It is, it is dreary. And about a year ago, we tinted the windows of the office, which was great because we had a whole lot of glare and it was hot and stuff like that. So I'm glad we did it. But it really sort of makes it look like when there's two clouds in the sky that we're all about to die in a tornado or hurricane. It makes the clouds look super ominous.
Hey, God just wants to keep you on the edge of your seat, man. I got to keep him bring the fire and brimstone.
So every now and then, I'll go open the door to see what it really looks like. Well, the street lights aren't on. It can't be that dark outside. I don't know. So, Taylor, what's your story, man?
Well, let's see. Biggest story, I guess, is how I got to be blessed with an amazing wife, daughter, and job and congregation.
That sounds fun.
Not
much there. Did you buy them all on eBay?
They were outbidding me, unfortunately.
That's the worst.
So, really, some folks know, some don't. See, I'm such a social butterfly, as all of you know. But I was married before, and that was one of those where a couple things. I wish I had listened a little more to my family and friends before the wedding, but at the same time afterwards, talking to them, I wish they would have spoke up a little more. And again, not blaming them, but that's one of those me learning in my life when I've got a friend in a bad situation, just a little, hey, it maybe isn't enough. We maybe need to sit down and talk and still respect it's their decision. And we're not always right, obviously.
Yeah. I've performed some marriages that I did not feel good about that have done great.
Including the minister who performed our marriage.
Yeah.
He knew me very well. And even just meeting her kind of gave a talk to me beforehand. And he's like, okay, this is what you want.
Yeah. That's this could be the podcast. I know that's not the intent, but one of the things that I think we struggle with in church in 2024, whatever year this is, I don't want to be the cult place that's controlling and all that. That's unhealthy.
Oh, yeah.
That's bad. Okay. Period. End of sentence.
Yeah.
But, okay, maybe comma, conjunction. I don't know. I'm aware of grammar at the moment. I sure wish we could figure out as a church how to help each other speak into life more so that, and not everybody at church needs to do this for every other person.
Right.
But if I'm about to make a colossally bad decision, I want there to be a culture and an environment where my friends are able to put their hands around my shoulder and say, are you sure this is a good idea? We don't think it is. And I would want to listen.
Right. And it could even be, hey, I know this is a big decision coming up and you maybe don't know if it's right or wrong, or maybe feel it is, but either way, let's just sit and pray. And pray that God's hands will be on it. And they don't even have to know how you feel one way or the other. Because it's really, Jesus even says, who can trust the human heart?
Right.
Is saying
Desperately
your life or someone else's life. But we can trust.
God.
We can trust God.
Yeah.
And that's one of those lessons I learned in my divorce. Because I was broken, man. That one of those other things I learned from it is, I don't care who you are or what you've done. I don't want you to know the pain of divorce.
Yeah.
Any aspect of it. It's horrible, and it will leave scars, and they're called, we say, wounds heal. They do, but scars are there.
Yeah.
The scars never fully go away. And it was a rough thing, to live with all that. But in that aftermath, I started praying about everything.
Yeah.
Everything. We're talking not just, what job I should take, who I should date. We're talking, should I go to the grocery store at this location or at that location?
Yeah.
Little things. And it was like an experiment, where I was like, okay, I'm just going to talk to you about everything and see what happens. And it would be, I go to that location. I needed bread, cheese, and milk. Guess what's on sale? Bread, cheese, and milk.
Yeah.
I don't pray. I go full price. Just like little things like that started. It was like God was reaching out to me. At that point, Matthew, when we divorced, I hadn't gone to church in 3 years.
Okay.
3 years. I'd fallen away. My ex-wife, her and her family weren't atheists, but they weren't believers either. And she had told me, if I want to go to church, she'll go with me.
Yeah.
But if I don't want to go, she won't go.
Right.
And at the start, I thought I was strong enough. We were dating. I had this vision in my head of getting her whole family to church and what it could be. But yeah, and God talks about this, having other believers around you. And it was just, there was progress at first, but it ended up me falling further and further away to the point, we're not blaming them. We had found this church. We were living in Oklahoma City at the time, and we had found a church in Yukon, Oklahoma, where Garth Brooks is from. Anyway, so we're out there, and I actually found the church from playing video games online.
Okay.
Like playing video games, and this guy I kept playing with, random friend in a matchmake, and we started talking. Oh, I'm in Oklahoma. You're in Oklahoma. I'm in Oklahoma City. You're in Yukon.
Yeah.
I go to Church of Christ. You go to church. Oh my gosh. Like it all just kind of dawned, and like that was a Saturday night. The next day we were at church with him.
Oh, how cool.
Right.
No one got murdered.
Right. He was a really good guy. And so we started going to this church, and it's tiny. Mm-hmm. It's got, maybe 50, 60 people. No official minister. There were 2 elders, and kind of rotated stuff around. And we would have lunch at the elder's house like once a month, something like that, just to visit with them. Because I was really trying to be involved on my own, really for the first time away from my family, seriously dating somebody and trying to help her build a path. And I'm already at that point where I'm starting to have doubts. And I asked the elder at lunch, I had this idea. It really wasn't my idea. It was something we had done at a church I was at in New Braunfels, where we made these like gift bags for homeless folks. Yeah. It would be a brown paper sack. On the cover, we just staple a little paper, not much, just like the name of the church and the phone number if they needed something, but basically, hey, Jesus loves you. That's it. We're just trying to help people. That was the whole point, and let God do the rest. And inside was food, canned food, non-perishables, baby wipes, sanitize, all those little things. That way, because in San Antonio, they were all over the place. Yeah. And you would often see somebody you'd want to help, but you don't have anything. So we had these bags, so you could just roll down the window, hand on the bag, and keep going. Get another bag at Sunday at church. We just had them in the lobby, so you could always get a new bag. Yeah. Right. And I talked to them about that, and the elder's response was, when I'd heard before, I've bought a homeless person a hamburger and seen them throw it away. Yeah. Second, because they didn't want the food, they wanted the money for booze, something like that. Yeah. Like, I'm sure that happens. Yeah. So that means I'm just not going to try anymore. Right. Because even if 99% of them fall away, God says, what about the one? Yeah. You got to keep trying.
It's okay to be a little reckless in our love.
Yeah. And he shot it down. He wouldn't do it. And that was kind of a turning point. I was like, what Satan used to justify for me going away was, if that's the leadership of the church, then I don't want to go to the church.
Right.
And it wasn't that I didn't believe in God when I fell away. I always believed. It was just, I was telling myself, it's not that I don't believe in God, it's I don't believe in the church.
Yeah.
Because God is spiritual, church is man-made. And it was just, that was kind of the soundtrack that was playing in my head. That was a lesson we heard at the church we were at in Corpus Christi this past Sunday. He mentioned soundtracks, and the soundtrack in my head wasn't, you don't believe, it's not, you're falling away from God, you're just falling away from the church, so you're fine. And then when you're not around believers, it's a little bit easier to fall a little bit further away, and a little bit further away, and a little bit further away. And after a few years, I remember kind of looking in the mirror, not recognizing who I am.
Yeah. How did we get here?
Even my weight, I gained like 50 pounds. I got really heavy because I was so unhappy. I was just eating all the time and not even realizing why I was unhappy. And so when our divorce came, and I'm forever eternally grateful to my ex-wife for having the courage to walk away, because I never would have.
Yeah.
Because in my mind, marriage is holy, and you should do whatever you can to make it work.
Yeah.
And even though in my heart, I knew this is bad, we're not right for each other.
Yeah.
We still loved each other, but it's like, we're not good for each other. We're not what the other person needs. And
it's funny to me how our teaching on marriage, I believe in the sanctity of marriage, right?
Mm-hmm.
I believe that divorce represents pain and something is broken and even sin.
Yeah.
But sometimes people continue to maintain abusive, toxic, unhealthy relationships and think somehow it's honoring to God to beat each other up every single day of the week rather than end it.
Right.
And sometimes that's what you have to do.
And it's one of those where we kind of forget God won't allow something if it's absolutely should not happen.
Yeah.
If God said, no matter what, if you get married, that's it. Period. End of story. He never would have allowed it to happen there in the Old Testament. He says, hey, this wasn't the plan.
Yeah. Because of the hardness of your heart.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's showing, for us, your plan should not be, if it doesn't work, I'll get a divorce.
Right.
And I think that's a little message there. You don't go into it thinking, I can just try again.
Yeah, we'll see
and try again. And try again. Whatever. Let's just roll the dice. No. Do you know how many lives can be hurt because of that? And then how many people make a living off of suffering because of things like that?
Yeah.
If we could remove that, But because she had that courage to do that, then that's what gave me that fresh start. And that's what started me. I live with some friends. I had lunch frequently with the elders of the church we used to go to in New Braunfels, where I graduated high school. That's where I moved back to. And it was a new beginning for me. I had so many people coming out of the woodwork. The church offered to pay for counseling for me. So I started getting marriage counseling, for free, because the arrangement of our marriage was my ex-wife, she was an attorney. Like, she had a full ride scholarship to law school. She was bright. Her family was wealthy. And not that she needed their money to make her own money, but the plan was she was going to be the working wife and I was going to be the stay-at-home dad.
Yeah.
That was our plan. So at the time, I had little jobs from time to time, but when we had divorced, I didn't have a job. We had decided I was going to go back to school to be a teacher.
Okay.
So when we divorced, I have no job and I'm getting a master's degree in education, and that
Which is rolling in the money.
Right. Spring break of my first semester of teaching, we separate. And that was my first semester of getting that degree. So then I'm moving out, turned upside down, didn't know what to do. And I ended up, after kind of living with these folks and then these folks, I moved in with parents of some folks at the youth group that I was in the youth group with. And it was kind of like second parents for me, like a chance to kind of revert back. sleep under the roof with these folks that are, good people, good parents that had their own struggles in marriage that were able to talk to me about how they worked through those things and gave me a lifeline when I really needed it. And so my family lived in different parts of the state, and that's where I was going to school. I needed to stay in that area, so it wasn't even like an option unless I wanted to restart. So then once I kind of got my feet back under me, that's when you get that old saying, kind of saw that opening. Okay, I'm losing this guy. How can I get back at him?
Yeah.
And kind of how I look at it is, when I was in Sunday school, there was a great lesson. I remember it was a Wednesday night lesson. I just remember this little analogy that the teacher gave. I don't even remember who it was, but I remember he told us, hey, a lot of y'all are athletes here, right? I know you're all supposed to work hard no matter what the situation is, practice, but let's be honest. Who do you practice hardest for? The team that has lost every game for the past 500 games or the state championship?
Right.
The state championship. Why? They're going to be bringing it.
Yeah.
Do you think Satan's any different?
Yeah.
If he's already got you,
he can kind of ignore you.
Yeah, he can kind of ignore you. So you're looking at your life and you're not really being tested. Why is that? And if you are being tested big time, that's probably because you're doing something right. It's like you hit on Job the other day. Why was Job going through all that? It wasn't because he did bad stuff. It was because he was doing good stuff.
Yeah.
And that's when it was being tested. And sometimes, Satan's good. You don't realize how he's testing you. I was tested with, as I was going to school, I knew this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
It was just in me. I'm finally on the path towards my future career. And then my best friend in the world, his family's got a construction business, built bridges. Out of college, I tried to get a job with him. There wasn't an opening, and his dad honestly wasn't too interested in hiring his son's knucklehead buddy, Because, I don't know why I was so mature back then. But so now the time comes, and there was an opening in the company. And they offered me the job where I would be making pretty good money. I'd have a company truck. I'm a truck guy. I finally got my truck last year. Thank the Lord. Thank you. I love my truck. God, please take care of it for me. So, but I had a truck, gas card, cell phone paid for, get to work with my buddy for the rest of my life. And it broke his heart. And I remember I was like, I can't take the job.
Yeah.
He's like, why? It's like, I just know this is what I'm supposed to. And he couldn't wrap his head around why I would turn down this job to be a grad student, mowing yards during the day, waiting tables at night when I wasn't at school at night. That was my life for 3 years. Just like wake up, mow yards, go home, shower, either go to church or go to school or go to the other job. That was it. He couldn't get it. And then as I'm doing the yard work with folks from church, they offered me, I got another job. Hey, do you want some help? You can work with us on this yard crew. He ends up becoming like another parent to me, a mentor, and he and his wife, really good folks. They wanted me to be a partner with him after doing it for a while. Like I'd never done this stuff, and together he and I had basically reorganized this whole business. We were making more money, cutting yards faster, just a complete change. But the two of us, it was like, man, we just fit together, finish each other's sentences without even talking type
Good
thing.
Partnership.
You're just on the ball. And he's like, do you want to do this with me? I was like, I can't.
Yeah.
I want to. And he understood. He's like, I get it. He actually was going to be a minister at one point in his life. And with that, when we were talking one day and I was having a really rough time, he just looks at me and we pull up to a house. Before we get out, he looks at me and stops the car and he's like, sit here for a second. It's like, you're having a rough time today, aren't you? I'm like, yeah. It's like, and he had gone through divorce himself. Said, whenever you're having a rough time, why is that? And it's like, I'm so upset about what I've done.
Yeah.
I know our marriage wasn't great, but I had done so many things to get us to that point. And he says, God say you need to forgive in the Bible. Mm-hmm. So yeah, he does. That includes yourself, right?
Yeah. Maybe.
And that was a turning point. And he and I just kind of sat there in silence. We said a little prayer, and that was another turning point for me. And our relationship grew so much. He respected the decision not to step up. He still gave me a raise because he wanted to. I was like, I can't. And it's like, yeah. So there were times where it would be just he and I instead of a full crew. So I could make a little bit more. And
yeah,
he was really looked after
friend.
me. Yeah. And then from that lawn business, there were some more folks in town hanging out with, have another lawn business, and they did all the commercial stuff. Same thing. He asked me to be a partner with him.
Yeah.
I can't do that. I could work with you like maybe on a Saturday, but I went from when I graduated Abilene Christian, with a degree in sociology, which you can apply to a lot of jobs, human behavior. I use it all the time. Couldn't get a job to save my life.
Yeah.
And then, and I think that was God saying, if you go down that road, that's not what I had planned.
This isn't the road for you.
So I'm not going to open that door.
Mm-hmm.
And then, when I went to Oklahoma and law school didn't work out, but I stayed there so I could be with my ex-wife. We, again, same thing. Nothing was working. You know what job I could get as a college graduate with a high GPA and a year of law school? Pizza Hut.
Yeah.
That's where I was working. Pizza.
Yeah.
That was the best I could do. And after working in Pizza Hut for 2 years, I hadn't got promoted.
Yeah.
And I left Pizza Hut to go to Chewy's because they opened up a new one in town and they offered me a better job than, and only at that point was it, you want to stay? And they still wouldn't promote me.
Hang on. Do you know how to make the creamy jalapeno dip?
Yes and no. I mean, I can tell you it's basically ranching and dice up some jalapenos in a food processor. That's basically it. But
it's just so good.
It is good. It's highly addictive. That again was one of my meals when I was poor. Man, the tortilla and creamy jalapenos the way they go.
They just opened a Chewy's in West Nashville.
I did not. I knew there's one in Franklin. Every time I go to the doctor, I go to Chewy's. I go to the stomach doctor, and then I go to Chewy's right after.
Okay, I was gonna say, which order do you do those things?
Yeah, no.
You go after. Okay, that makes a lot more sense.
No, he doesn't need
where
to
O'Charlie's used to be on White Bridge Road. There's so
that's gonna save me a little drive. I don't have to go up there. But yeah, so it was like door close, door close, door close, and as soon as I'm doing the right thing per se, then all these doors were opening, but I knew they weren't the doors I was supposed to walk through.
Right.
And that's where kind of where I'm at. I never would have had the mind to not walk through those doors if I hadn't gone through the divorce.
Yeah.
If those doors were opening while she and I were married, oh yeah, I'll take that job. I'll take that job. I'll do that. When she and I were married, I saw my future as working in restaurant management. Which there's nothing wrong with that. I enjoy cooking. I love it. That's why I was happy to do it. But I was never fulfilled doing that. I never really felt happy. It was just punch the clock. When the clock's over, I get to go home. Now it's like part of why I'm able to wake up at 5 and be at work before 7 is because I can't wait to get there.
Yeah.
I love working with the students. I love working with the folks around me. And it's not just me teaching them. It's, I tell them each year, like, I'm going to learn as much from y'all as y'all do from me.
Yeah.
And because, I'm so antisocial being around, so people don't believe it. I really am. But being around those folks, it helps me come out of my shell a little bit more because, like, we're all human. It's like I long for human contact, but it's also terrifying. And I get so anxious and nervous at the same time because I love acting. I try to hide it pretty well. It's where Kristen didn't believe me. I was introverted until she and I had been married for, I was like, okay, I can see it now.
Yeah. Sometimes I'll say it's getting a little too people-y in here. I can relate. I really do.
Yeah. So it's like, whatever bad stuff you're going through, trust it. I don't think Moses would have been able to do what he had done if he hadn't spent all those years in the desert.
Yeah. I think that was a time of preparation.
Midian, like it was, okay. And even then, he doesn't really appreciate it until it's there. Like when God's presenting him with this, I don't know about this, and I'm presented with, you're about to go through a divorce. You're going to have a few years not working really hard, not having much anything.
Yeah.
There were times, man, where the only reason I didn't get kicked out of my house is because of the God's grace and the landlord of, you can pay me late.
Yeah.
Because I was paid cash daily for the job. So it was wintertime. There's not a lot of yards to mow,
No, grass doesn't grow real fast.
and I would be sweating. That's why I had to pick up the second job. But also working nights, a few nights a week, waiting tables, you can only make so much. That's a roll of the dice as it is. And it was rough. It was definitely a test in faith. But now it's also having what I have. Man, I am so grateful.
It makes you appreciate what you have.
And it's like, God knows if you can learn a lesson or not. He knows you.
Yeah. So how do you end up getting a Kristen out of this deal?
Well, she, it's one I love is because I'm so memorable and lovable. She just had to call me,
Yeah.
and it's one of those where you never know when your life's going to change. I remember just walking in my room, the phone rang, looked down. Kristen, she and I had met at Camp Leatherwood, and I think she talked about on y'all's podcast. I knew much sooner than she did.
Yeah.
It was one of those. I didn't even know she was. It was that girl I saw on the kickball field across the way. Games morning. Like, who is that?
Yeah.
And it wasn't just that she was beautiful. It's like she just has this laugh, this contagious spirit about her, where she's different in every way, in all the best ways.
Yeah.
And I was just immediately drawn to her. I had to get to know who she was. Me and another boy were feeling the same way about her. It was a little competition about...
Did you have him killed?
Well, I didn't have him killed per se. But,
Not that they can prove.
yeah, right. No, he was a good guy. And but she and I, I just always knew that she was amazing. I remember after Leatherwood, my sister Alicia picked me up, and she was driving me to Buckner for a baseball game or something like a week after, and I was just couldn't stop talking about this girl I'd met at camp.
Yeah.
And Alicia was like, "You really like this girl?" Because I'd never kind of acted like that before.
Yeah.
And fast forward then, so that was summer before 7th grade. Fast forward to freshman year in high school, she and I are in the play together at Dixon High School, and we had to share a kiss in the play.
There you go.
And I was dating the stage manager, so that was fun. So after we kissed, I walk off stage, and she was always glaring at me right there. Like, I can't help it; it's part of the play, man.
Script.
I didn't pick it, but I really enjoyed it. Yeah, I definitely couldn't say that. Kristen was dating her ex-husband at the time, and I was dating this lady. But after that, I compared every single girl I dated to Kristen.
Yeah.
She was the gold standard. I mean, we moved that year. So she and I are in the play fall sophomore year. We moved February sophomore year to Texas.
Okay.
And so, I stayed in touch with folks, and she and I would talk like every year or something like that. And, she ended up marrying the guy that she had dated. So I'm thinking that's not an option, so I'm dating the other people, and after all that, she called that day, and I remember answering the phone and talking. When we got off the phone, I just had this feeling.
Yeah.
Like, is this real? Is this happening? And even though there was nothing romantic per se about the phone call, we just talked and laughed the whole time. It was going to be like a 5-minute phone call because I was in the room to change and then head out because I think we were going to the river or something like that. And I ended up being late because she and I just talked and talked and talked. And it's like, we got to pick this up again. We'll talk again tomorrow.
Yeah.
And we did. And we just kept talking to each other. After that, we never stopped. And especially for me, not being a talker, my friends and family will tell you, if I call you, it's not to say hello. It's because we need to talk about something, good or bad or whatnot. Like, I just don't, if you want to talk, call me, I'll talk to you, but I just don't. But for her, I did, and we just kept doing it. Even so we started dating, and I got my first teaching job there in Tyler. When I would have morning duty, I would put in my earbud and I would have her on the line. So she, it reminded us of that Office episode. I don't know if you ever watched The Office, but
A little bit.
Jim and Pam had like the smallest Bluetooth speakers ever.
Yeah.
Or, and they tried to talk all day. And that's what Chris and I did. We were just in the middle of something. She'd start talking. So, you're not talking to me. You're talking to someone else.
Yeah.
And then it was good. It just felt like she was there with me. And that's how we made it work. And then getting to know Quinn over that, I told Kristen, I want to make sure we're building a relationship, and it's not just some strange guy. And she and I got along when I was around her, but you've met her. She's more introverted than I am.
And she's quiet.
Yeah, and quiet. So how do I build a relationship with this sweet girl? And we would FaceTime at night, and I would read her story.
Mm-hmm.
So Quinn would hold up the book with the phone to show me the page so I could read it to her.
Uh-huh.
And then that was kind of how we did. And as she read more and more, then she got to the point that she would be reading the stories to me.
Mm-hmm.
And that was kind of how we managed for those few years. And again, none of that would have been possible without everything that had happened to me. So I was saying, God knows if you can learn a lesson or not. He's going to say, I'm going to tell you the lesson in the Bible.
Yeah.
And it would be great if you could learn it that way.
But most of the time.
But if you don't, okay, it's like me in class.
Your summer school.
I tell my students, I got a lot of ways I can teach you. I do with the least intrusive way possible.
Yeah.
And if that doesn't work, then I step it up a little bit.
We can
Step it up a little bit.
Yeah.
Step it up a little bit. And I feel like that's how God is. And I was just one of those, and people tell you know me pretty well. I can be stubborn and hard-headed. I know it's hard to believe, those that are outside my family, but I learned the hard way. I really, really do. And unfortunately, pain is one of the biggest ways for me to remember stuff. And it's like also a Star Trek fan. I remember this Star Trek. There was one of them. It was 5 or 6, one of the original ones, towards the end, and William Shatner, Captain Kirk, was talking about how he needed his pain.
Yeah,
his pain is kind of what helped him realize what's important in life and who he was meant to be. And unfortunately, I look at my life before and then my life after, and those few years were rough and they were filled with pain. But if it weren't for that, I couldn't have turned into what I needed to become.
Yeah.
Because if Kristen would have married me right out of high school, she probably would have divorced me too.
Yeah.
And I needed I need some new perspective on life.
Yeah.
And what really matters.
It's amazing how God prepares us in ways that we don't expect. One of my favorite things about this podcast has been hearing how many times people's story is, here's a thing that wasn't good, but here's how God used that thing to do incredible good. Mm-hmm. And I think if we could become a little bit more convinced of the truth of that concept, your divorce wasn't good. It was painful. It was awful. It was less than ideal. It was maybe the marriage wasn't good. Mm-hmm. But God took that not good and used it to prepare you. Yeah. And maybe, I don't know. I know that's, kind of Pollyanna. You don't want to be like, hey, you got cancer, but God's doing cool stuff. But it's funny. We have in our core thoughts that possibility. Sorry, go ahead.
No, finish your thought.
No, I mean, just if we have in our head that possibility that God is going to use every time something bad is happening, if we believe that God could do something good with it, how would it change our experience of the bad thing?
To help me remember that lesson, my dog, Annie.
Yeah.
Pollyanna.
Oh, how funny.
I named her Pollyanna. Now, I gave her the last name Oakley because had a Wild West theme with my dogs, Butch Cassidy.
Okay.
So she's technically Pollyanna Oakley, Annie Oakley.
Yeah.
But
Annie, get your gun.
Yeah, Pollyanna is what I named her after.
Oh,
she's just joy incarnate.
So you have a cat named like Adolf Hitler or something? Or?
No, we have a male cat named Iris.
Okay.
We didn't know he was a boy, and then they dropped and said, "Oh, well, there you go. He's a boy." Okay.
And boys and girls who are listening, if you have any questions, you can contact Taylor.
But he, sweetest cat ever. Chris is even saying we've had him for just under a year. said, I can't even imagine what our life would have been like without him now that we've had him. He's just the sweetest guy. Plays with Annie all the time.
Our most recent cat was named Ash Cat by the pound.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess Caleb was probably 4 or 5 when we adopted Ash Cat. And you can imagine what it sounds like when a 4 or 5-year-old tries to say Ash Cat a lot.
Oh, buddy.
So Caleb got the opportunity to rename Ash Cat. So Ash Cat is now Silly Cat. And Silly Cat is a murderous beast. You know?
Yep. Our Iris left us a mouse on the back porch one day. We've been trying to catch them, so we left a whole bunch of cat treats around. It's like, good cat, bring more of those. You do it, boy.
Well done.
None after that. That was like 6 months ago.
That's a shame.
It's like, come on, man.
Yeah, I read this thing one time that said that the reason cats do that is because they think that we are such bad hunters that they're providing for us. Like, they think that we're not doing our jobs or something like that.
So he's got like 3 food bowls that are constantly full. I don't know what I can think
Who
that.
knows? But it's just so cool to hear the different things that God has done.
Yeah.
You know?
Even like when I got into teaching, I got my degree in where I can teach social studies or English, right? And growing up, I was not an English guy. I liked history. My dad's a history buff. My granddad's a history buff. We visit all these different historical battlefields and stuff like that. Like, been to the Little Bighorn battlefield reenactment, all sorts of stories. They actually, I don't know if y'all know, I did an internship with the Crow Reservation in Montana.
Yeah.
Up there. They asked me to actually ride with the Native Americans in the reenactment, which was super awesome. The catch was you had to ride bareback, which, okay, I'll fall off. I've never been thrown in a saddle. They can't, but if I'm bareback, I'll fall off in 2 seconds. It's kind of funny. But I would have dealt with that. But then the other catch was you had to wear a loincloth. So I was like, you want me to wear a loincloth riding a horse bare? You know it's going to fall off and I'm just going to be butt naked in front of all these people.
Okay, I'm going to regret this question, but are there pictures of this?
Well, that's what I say. I said no. I trained. They offered it to me and this other intern who were up there, which they had never offered before. I think they really liked him and they felt bad, so they asked me as well. So we rode every day for a couple weeks up to it bareback. It's like, dude,
Or they
we're not
we're trying to kill you.
right. But we watched it, but no, didn't try. I knew it was like, this is not going to end well if I do this. So that was maybe one of the first wise decisions I ever made in my life.
Man.
But yeah, so I wanted to do history. But when I was meeting with the advisor, he said, okay, you can do history. You could do history in English, or you could do what we call a generalist, where you can be certified for everything. And you're more marketable that way. I'm like, yeah, more marketable for a job I don't want.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, you can get a job teaching math. I don't want to teach math. Or science. I don't want to teach science. You know, it's like, that would have put me back in the spot where I was at. Like with the restaurants, it's a job, but I'd just be counting the hours. It's not what I wanted to do. And he still couldn't get over why I wouldn't want to do it. And it's like, dude. But anyways, so I went with the English and history. And when I did my student teaching, I was history in the morning, English in the afternoon, and then reading specialist for the last class of the day. So I had 3 lesson preps a day as a student teacher, which they normally don't do. The school reached out, like, we haven't had someone that had this degree path before. How would you like to pursue it? Because you would typically just pick one.
Right.
And I was like, I don't know what I'm going to teach. So I never taught before. So give me both. And it was fun. But again, I had 2 phenomenal ladies that worked with me for the history department and the English department. And they really prepped me, and I loved them both. And I really enjoyed the history side of it because I could do my storytelling thing a little bit. And, but then on the English side, there was just something about it where I knew it was like this a little bit more work. I don't know grammar and punctuation as well as I should, especially to teach this. So every day to teach a lesson, I had to teach myself and then go into, so it was double the amount of work just to know how to teach it.
Yeah.
But afterwards, I asked the students, because I had a lot of students for both classes. I did a raw pulse, like, maybe you hate them both, but if you had to choose, which would you rather have me teach?
Yeah.
And it almost unanimously came back English.
Huh. Okay.
It's like, okay. And I kind of had that feeling already, even though I still enjoyed doing the history a little bit more. Even going to where I'm at now, I applied for history at Dixon High School. They said, how about English?
Okay.
It was like, oh, all right, I'll do it.
Here we are. Here we are.
This is God saying, this is what you're going to do, and you're just going to go with it. But it's one of those, I didn't go in there with that ambition, but the door was open. It was there because that's the path that God wanted. It's one of those, if there's something kind of in the back of your head and the back of your heart, it kind of reminds me of like when Peter knew who Jesus was. It's like the Holy Spirit told you that.
Yeah.
And the Spirit's putting something in you. Don't run from it. Don't hide it.
Pay attention.
Right. And that was the biggest thing that I got out of the whole divorce. Be who you are. God created you exactly how you are for a reason. The good, the bad, all of it. All the bad in me is what helped me become better.
Yeah.
All the good was there long before, but it took those experiences to develop them.
Yeah.
And sharpen and refine them. And Darren, I remember praying when I started to realize what was happening. I prayed to God, man, this is hurting. It's awful. It's terrible. But if you have to rip me apart and drag me across the coals to turn me into what I need to be,
do what you have to do.
Mm. And it hurt to pray that prayer, but I had already saw as rough as my life was during that, it was better than when I was married.
Yeah.
Than when we had bills taken care of, cars taken care of, job, all of that.
Sometimes there's things more important than having stability.
Right. The only stability I need is in God.
Yeah.
And He's not going anywhere. And that's realizing if I can just throw the cares on Him, it's all going to work out.
I read that somewhere.
I'm just not going to worry about it. As long as I'm doing what I'm the best I can. It's like I like referring to popular culture and Frozen too. Just do the next right thing.
Just do the next right thing is one of the best mantras that I've heard in a long time.
And it sticks in me.
If you're not sure what to do, I don't know how to get from here to there. That place feels too far away. Just do the next right thing.
Yeah. It's the best you can do. God knows you're not perfect. You're going to make mistakes. But did you try? Is with my students, the one goal I have to teach them by the end of the year, I've got 2 words on my wall that I have my amazing wife, who's an amazing artist, make a poster up for me. It says, rise up, which just means try your best. Yeah. You got to, whatever's happening, rise up, give it what you got. Yeah. And I tell them, look, doesn't matter what lesson I give you, what's going on. If this is step 1, and if you skip step 1, bad stuff happens. Yeah. It's like try to bake cookies without turning on the oven.
It doesn't. It takes a long time.
It's not going to work out right. Try to replace a tire without taking off the lug nuts. Yeah. If you skip step 1, it doesn't work. Step 1 for anything in life is try. And if you just learn to try, you're still going to fail. But now you have a chance to succeed. Yeah. And every time you try, you're going to learn something. Like Thomas Edison, I learned 2,000 ways how not to make a light bulb. Right. And
I get a result that's actually a positive result.
Right. You have the perseverance. Maybe that's where the whole patience lesson comes in. And Lord knows, I think that's why he made me an English teacher, because I need a lot more lessons on that.
Oh, you get 20 of them every period of the day. 30 of them. I don't know how many kids yet.
Oh, yeah. There was a bit of class size discrepancy. I had one class with 12, and due to absence and behavior issues, I had about 8 in there most of the time. Okay. And then another class, I had 30.
Oh, wow.
It's funny. That class, I have 29 desks in my room. Okay. So I had to have one person sitting at a table at my desk. So they're literally sitting at my teacher desk for that class. And that was the class that they kept trying. When we get a new student, Guess what class they put in? They put in. I don't tell you how many times I had to email the poor secretary. 'Cause, they get new students all the time, and she can't keep track of all that. Yeah. And once they figured out, she would always move them to a different class. But it would just be like, "Hey, you're in my fourth period class again. I don't have a desk for this kid." And
not room.
Yeah, my saving grace is that class was incredibly well behaved.
Yeah,
and there were. I don't know how they were well behaved because there were a lot of knuckleheads in there, but we had a good time, and when we needed to focus, we focused.
Is that the educational technical term, knucklehead?
Yeah, they were good. And then my tiny class, that was the one that we butted heads the most. But also
you lost 4/12 of them.
And they were good. And I told by the end they knew like some of my favorite. We have favorite students. Some of my favorite moments of the year were with that class.
Yeah.
Because of that struggle, we can see the good, the bad, and the growth that happened.
Once you actually get somewhere, it's going to be somewhere good.
Yeah. And there are always going to be several kids that, you want to keep track of all of them.
Yeah.
It's impossible. There's definitely several out of that class that I'm going to be keeping an eye on. Now, I love them all. I tell the students, like, I don't know, y'all are my kids.
Yeah.
You maybe don't feel that way, but that's how I feel about you. I think about
the kids I wished I didn't have.
yeah. It's think about them, you pray for them, and you laugh with them, and you cry with them, and then a year later they're gone.
Yeah,
but you still don't.
Education's a weird thing like that. How you have these. I've always thought campus ministry is just really interesting ministry because you really completely have started over every 4 years, but you really start over every year.
Yeah, especially now that they go to the other school. They're up the hill. That was what I loved about William James. By my last year there, I had taught, unless you moved in after 6th grade, I taught every student in that school building.
Every kid in the building.
Everyone. Yeah. So I knew I had done everything I can to make an impact in every kid's life in this building.
That's pretty cool.
And that's why I coached. Why I did, I had asked, I'd always wanted to coach soccer.
Yeah.
And there was an opening, and they're like, "Hey, would you like to take this opening to coach?" It's like, yeah. And that same day, Coach Adam Bogle came in to ask me, "Hey, would you want to coach football too?" I'm like,
how funny.
All right. So I went from, in one day not coaching anything to two sports. And the only reason I did that, it wasn't for the coaching. As much as I love sports, it was that gives me a chance to really build relationships with these kids. Regardless of what happens in the classroom, I'm 6th grade, they're going on to a different class, but I can continue to make an impact with them and work with them for better or for worse. I can say, I tried.
Yeah.
And so when I was coaching the soccer team, we did like lock-ins at my house. Yeah. And I encouraged the boys that knew were believers to pray with the guys and do things like that. And it's one of those, especially being a teacher, I don't want to get fired, because then if I'm fired, then I can't do, the thing. So
but there's always sneaky ways.
It's towing the line. What can I do? What can't I do?
Yeah.
And so I would try to have them do as much.
Well, and people have, one of the things I think is people have ceded too much territory. There's a lot we can do. Yeah. I know I'm not coming into a school to jam my religion down someone's throat. But there are opportunities and there are moments, and you can take them.
Yeah. Like I've got a little verse from one of your lessons. I don't remember what the verse was, but it was if you think you're too good to help someone, you're wrong, or something. That was basically the essence, and I printed it off, and I got it 3 copies around my room and on the front.
Yeah.
It's like, if that's nothing else, you're learning to stop thinking about you. And that was, again, I was so selfish. Mm-hmm. And I know I struggle with being selfish. I mean, we all do.
I think everybody does.
In realizing, kind of like when I was teaching that class, the Sunday morning class, JOI.
Yeah.
It was me, Jesus first, yourself last, others in between. If on this planet, if everyone looks out for themselves, right? We all look out for ourselves. How many people are looking out for me? 1.
Yep.
What if I don't look out for me and I look out for everybody else?
Yeah.
And everyone adopts that mindset. Well, then instead of one person looking out for me, I have how many billion people looking out for me? Well, that sounds like a better deal.
I'm sorry, the people in Antarctica will look out for you. You take them off the map.
But I mean,
I know exactly. What you mean. Yeah.
It's just like even if you want to look at it from a completely selfish perspective, that's still doing more for you.
Yeah.
You know, and not to mention how many other people that could be helped. And all of it. And I feel like all these problems come down to, or not all of them, but most of the problems of the world come down to people just being selfish and putting themselves first. And they'll try to act like they're not.
Yeah.
Oh, it's not me. It's my community I'm putting first. It's my family I'm putting first. It's my political party I'm putting first.
Or they use one of those things is that's how I'm putting others first, when really it's getting what we are. Back to the beginning of this conversation, we talked about how nice it would be if we could tell the truth to each other.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the reasons that's hard is because of the number of times people have been controlling and domineering instead of that. So we are kind of isolationists. We don't want to hear from other people.
Yeah.
I'll do me, you do you. Good luck.
Yeah, what about that phrase? Instead of, next right thing, you do you.
Yeah.
Remember that one? It's like, which basically means instead of us being together in a community, we're just it's easier for us not to try to connect.
Yeah. And there's, again, it's one of those balance things. Like there's a place you do have to make your decisions.
Yeah.
So you have to do you, but I don't need to say you do you. Okay, you're a good English teacher. No man is an island, right? John Donne, Meditation 17, don't ask for whom the bell tolls, it tolls for thee.
Yeah.
The story, if I remember that poem, is he's sick when he writes the thing, and he hears the bells that are rung when there's a funeral. Mm. And the question always when you hear the bell ring is, who died? Mm-hmm. He says, don't ask who it's for, because every time it rings, it's for you. You have lost something every time someone died. It's one of the great pieces of literature. What a concept. We are connected. Yeah. And one of the big problems in our world is with social media, we have superficial connection. We have fake connection, not real connection. We're just connected enough to judge each other, not connected enough to help each other.
And when the only way problems are going to get solved is if we actually communicate and talk about it. And one of the poems I do with my students every year, curriculum or not, we're going to read The Poison Tree by William Blake.
Yeah.
One of those classes I took in college, which again, God knew what I was going to do before I did. Right? I took Major British Writers 1 and 2 as an elective.
There's something wrong with you.
Right. It's nothing but English poetry. I never got into... The only reason I took it, my freshman English class was taught by this amazing teacher.
Yeah.
And that was the only thing she had available for my schedule I could take. It's like, I'm doing it.
Yeah.
And I did, and man, it was awesome.
That's cool.
And it was like, I had no idea. That was my sophomore year in college, and all these years later, using that stuff. And the point of that story, William Blake, is the poison tree is this bad relationship that bore fruit. He's using the metaphor of a poison tree, and that he starts off... oh gosh, about just saying that if poison tree, I gotta look it up because I'm gonna butcher that phrase. Okay, well, my phone's not gonna work.
That's okay.
But he's saying that when he had a friend he was mad at, he talked about his anger, and the anger went away.
Yeah.
He had another friend he was mad at, he didn't say anything. And then that's the rest of the poem, how it turned into this poison tree. And eventually, the person saw it. And then, of course, they're wondering what it is, because when someone's angry at you, they're angry at you. You can feel it. You can see it.
Yeah.
And all these things just spiraled out of control until eventually the person confronted them and they talked about it. And it's like in life, how many times do we actually talk to people about how we were hurt by them or how we're upset, or do we talk at them?
Yeah.
Are we yelling at them? Are we jumping on them? Especially now with a election coming up, and there's a lot of stuff going on right now. Are they talking to each other and listening to each other? No, both sides. And that's what both sides don't see, how poorly they're mishandling it. And both sides completely feel they're justified.
100%.
And it's until y'all can talk, both sides feel it's getting torn apart. And it is, because y'all aren't talking. Y'all aren't, we all think our way is the way.
Yeah.
I thought it was a democracy and we're all supposed to work together to
What a
find.
crazy thought.
I know it, man. What were our founding fathers thinking about putting aside political differences to work together? Goodness gracious.
That can't be it.
Yeah. And we just got to find a way to communicate through it all. And it's tough. It's not easy. When I'm mad at someone, you know what I don't want to do?
Yeah.
Talk to them.
Exactly.
But I'm pretty sure God didn't say, follow me. It's easy.
I had a friend who preached a sermon one time, and I never got the line. He says, we were not called to comfort,
No.
but we sure pursue it.
Mm-hmm. And instant gratification, one way or another. We can't wait. We want it now.
We want what we want when we want it, and that was yesterday.
Yeah.
Well, Taylor, this has been kind of fun. We've been all over the place, haven't we?
Well, yeah, I told you there's no rhyme or reason. It's just going to bounce.
This episode is sponsored by ADHD.
I was about to say, see, I'm working on getting that diagnosis in all legitimacy. Chris is starting to see it. I told her, it's like, that's another one. It's there. I mean, I bounce.
Well,
Bounce
hey,
around.
it's all right. That's how God makes us.
It is.
Is there anything else you want to share?
Appreciate just random. Appreciate the moments you got, folks, with whoever it is, whatever, we talk about living the moment, and God does too. You don't know what's going to come. And one of the, it's going to be a complete abrupt change. One of the roughest, earliest lessons I had in my life was when I was in college. Went over spring break, the start of the spring break, to my grandparents' house with my buddy, the one who was talking about from the construction company earlier, to pick up their old table, which is in our house right now. And we went to pick it up because they got a new one and loved this table. All the grandkids fought over it, and I got it. Yes. So I got this table, and we got in pretty late, and her sitting at that table with my grandma and grandpa that evening, and my buddy Clay, and we drank coffee and visited with them for a little bit. It was pretty late, and then the next morning we got up, we loaded the table in his truck, and my grandpa had been sick. He had an aneurysm and had recovered, and he had just gotten in the hospital for, I think, pneumonia, and then got back out, and I gave him a big hug and told him bye, and we got in the truck and backing down the driveway, and I stopped for a second, so I wanted to get out and run and give him one more hug.
Yeah.
But I didn't, because we were on it like this was the start of spring break. We had a schedule. We're in Houston. We got to get all the way back into Braunfels. We got a truckload. And so stuff. And I was like, that's okay. I'll see him again in a couple of weeks. He died that year, about a month later. And I never saw him again.
Yeah.
And it just always stuck with me, because I cannot stress how strong that feeling was. Get out. Go give him a hug right now.
Don't ignore those feelings.
Because I feel like, now, especially retrospect, that was the Spirit letting me know this is the last time you're going to see him.
Yeah.
You need this. And when you feel those moments, folks, and don't run away from them.
Yeah.
The Spirit talks to you every single day. We hear it. We just don't always listen.
Crazy.
Listen to the Spirit, folks.
Absolutely. Well, that's a good end, isn't it? Yeah. So, friends, thank you for listening to this. This is not quite the Spirit, but maybe there's something that in these conversations the Spirit does that nudges you. I think nudges are pretty powerful tools. Mm-hmm. Well, friends, you know where to find us and how to listen. Thanks again for your time, and I hope that you'll share this with a friend. And until then, I can't wait to hear what God does in your story.
Thanks for listening to Rough Drafts. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. While you're at it, help us spread the word by leaving a rating and review. Until next time, let's keep looking for how God writes His love into our stories.